the evening of Women's Day. My son Jacob brought his wife Emily and grandson home for dinner. The grandson was particularly active. He insisted on bringing food to his husband Christopher's mouth. I smiled and said, "The baby really understands. He can feed Grandpa." The words just fell. Christopher violently slammed the chopsticks on the table. Angrily shouted, "You are cursing me. Is it that you wish me to be so sick that I even need to be fed?" Jacob immediately picked up his grandson. He said, "Dad, you also know that Mom is not very educated. She's a straight talker. Don't bother with her." Emily booked the restaurant room in front of me. She said, "Dad, don't be mad. Don't be mad, we don't want to eat her food anyway. Let's go out to eat as a family of 4, watching them put on their shoes." They went out happily. I felt uneasy. My heart is a little confused. For more than 30 years, I had always lived like this. Suddenly, I felt that this life was really boring. I turned around and called my foreign lawyer. Asked, "My dad's $100 million will, can it be postponed for a month before it takes effect? And, by the way, help me prepare a divorce agreement." The lawyer froze for a moment on the other end of the phone. Then he asked me cautiously, "Madeline, you mentioned earlier that the will would be left to your son Jacob. This will be left to your son Jacob. If you decide to get a divorce. You don't have to." I interrupted him with a bitter smile. "In the divorce agreement, I don't want anything, but I only have one request. The marriage must be divorced before the will takes effect." The lawyer paused briefly, as if he understood my thoughts. Then he said, "Madeline, don't worry. In fact, Mr. Thompson's will, it will only come into effect in a month's time. He said before, this is his birthday gift to you." The lawyer's words made my heart soar. Tears almost flowed out. It turned out that the person who loved me the most in this world was no longer there. After hanging up the phone, I turned around and dumped the table of food into the trash, then followed the example of the young people, went online and ordered myself a bouquet of flowers and a takeaway. It's a bit ironic, to say the least. This is the first time since I've been married for so many years. The first time I spent money for myself. The takeaway hadn't even arrived yet. Jacob's call came. He sounded impatient, commanding, "Mom, get my dad's chopsticks." I suddenly remembered, although Christopher has an average ability, but he is especially health conscious. Every time he ate out, he would bring his own chopsticks. I glanced at the trash can, coldly said, "Already thrown away." The end of the phone. Jacob immediately yelled, "Threw away. My father used the chopsticks for so many years. You just threw them away. Have you never respected my dad?" He paused for a moment. There was an obvious contempt in his tone. No wonder Dad always said you can't compare to Aunt Sophia, who is so gentle and considerate. Now it seems, it does indeed. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. "When you threw my college diploma in the first place, how come you didn't mention respecting me?" Jacob smiled disdainfully, responding in a light-hearted tone, "You stay at home all day. You don't have to work. All supported by my dad. What use is that diploma to you? What's the point of bringing this up all the time? Or do you think you're so great with that little ink in your belly? You think you're better educated than my dad. You think you can tell me what to do. So what if my dad didn't graduate from high school all these years? He still runs his own company. He's been supporting you for over 30 years. That diploma of yours, just throw it away. The empty space here is for Dad to put the gifts from Aunt Sophia." I heard him yelling. I couldn't help but frown. I obviously didn't say a word, but he's putting all the blame on me. Indeed, Jacob is both in appearance and character. He is very similar to Christopher. Even his attitude of favoritism is the same over the years. I've always taken care of Christopher's feelings. I've never revealed to him. In fact, Christopher's company was founded only because of me. Slowly, he mistook Christopher as the company's president and boss, and I'm just an ordinary housewife. Because of this, Jacob has been looking down on me since he was a child. I shook my head helplessly, about to hang up the phone. Christopher's unhappy voice came from the other end of the phone. "Madeline, do you really want to curse me to death? If I get a bad stomach from eating out, it's your responsibility. I ask you to deliver it to me within half an hour. Otherwise, I'll tear up all your paintings. I'll tear them all up for you." I glanced towards the study. My heart was suddenly clogged. Even breathing became difficult. Those paintings are all the dreams and hobbies I gave up for Christopher. Not only did he never support me, he also always threatened me with them. I sighed helplessly, picked up the chopsticks in the trash can, still went to the address Jacob gave me, just arrived at the restaurant. I saw Sophia, my husband's first love. She was holding a bouquet of yellow roses. She was holding a bouquet of yellow roses with the word Chris written on the card. She saw me. Pretending to be surprised, she covered her mouth and said, "Madeline, after so many years, how come you still don't know what Christopher likes to eat? It makes him have to run out to eat." I stared blankly at the yellow roses in her arms. My eyes were a little complicated. She saw me in this state. Couldn't help but cover her mouth and laugh. Right, I also didn't expect it. Christopher actually remembered that yellow roses were my favorite, but it's Women's Day. He had to break the bank so much. I didn't know what to say at this time. Emily came out of the bathroom. She gently took Sophia's arm. She said gently, "Aunt Sophia, quickly go inside." Sophia looked at me, looks a little hesitant, as if she had something to say but didn't say it. Emily noticed me. She took the chopsticks from me. Her tone was not very friendly. "It's okay. Mom, go home early. Remember to clean up the living room, otherwise Dad will be upset again." Finished speaking, he took Sophia and turned into the dining room. I don't feel good in my heart, but I didn't want to do anything. Turn around and leave. Passing by the restaurant's floor-to-ceiling windows, I caught a glimpse of Sophia hugging her grandson affectionately, kissing him over and over. Christopher was standing by, looking at her with relief on his face. His eyes were gentle. From time to time, he used his own chopsticks to give her food. His chopsticks are always for his exclusive use. I remember once I accidentally used them. He immediately scolded me loudly. "Why don't you pay attention to hygiene? You're so uncouth." Now, instead, he used his chopsticks to give Sophia a bowl full of food. At this moment, I realized clearly, the marriage I've always been proud of is actually a joke. Upon arriving home, I found the takeout and the flowers at the door. I calmly put the flowers in place, but while eating the takeout, I couldn't stop the tears from flowing. After finishing the last bite, I suddenly felt an unprecedented sense of relief. This home, I decided to let go. I walked into the study, preparing to pack up my paintings, intending to send them back to my home abroad first. Unintentionally, I found a photo album with a cover full of yellow roses. I opened it. It was full of sweet pictures of Christopher and Sophia, records of their half-life memories. It turns out, while I was fully devoted to my family, Christopher was chasing after love with her. My whole body was shaking, heart filled with shame. If he doesn't love me, just tell me directly. Why do this to me? I was just about to close the album. A yellowed letter fell out of it. I picked it up and took a look. I found it was an apology letter from Christopher to Sophia. In the letter, Christopher wrote very directly, "Sophia, I married Madeline out of necessity in order to marry me. She got pregnant while I was drunk, but that's good. With this child, I don't have to pay her dowry. Instead, her family will give me a huge dowry. Sophia, I need that dowry. Don't worry, I don't love her. When my company is up and running, I won't let you down." So that's how it is. I wiped away my unwilling tears, endured the discomfort and photographed the album and the letters, then packed the paintings, hurriedly contacted the courier company and mailed it. I don't know how long it took. Jacob's phone called again. He opened his mouth and reproached, "It's just that I didn't take you out to dinner tonight. You actually plan to turn off intimate pay. Don't think I don't know. My dad pays your living expenses every month. Transfer $2,000 to me right now, otherwise I'll lose face. Household, give me $500 a month. Let me take care of the family's food, clothing, and transportation. That's very generous." I said calmly into the phone, "I understand. It's my fault." After saying that, I hung up the phone. I made a mistake. I didn't black out and delete him. This kind of person is only asking for money. I don't want him. After that, I was busy in the study until past 12 at night. I finally finished packing. The people from the courier company just left. Christopher and the others came back. When they came in, I was sitting on the sofa watching a TV series. As soon as Christopher saw me, his face immediately became ugly, coldly asked, "What are you doing again? You have to wait for me to come back like this. Give me pressure, is it? You're so old. You're still jealous for no reason. If Sophia and I really had something, you wouldn't be here." Emily followed suit. "Aunt Sophia is a florist. Everyone knows she likes yellow roses. Stop it." Jacob stared at me as soon as he entered the door, said, "Just for this little thing you have to turn off the intimacy pay. Do you think I really care? If you're half as good as Aunt Sophia, our family would be lucky." I kept my head down, ignored what they said. After turning off the TV, I pushed the divorce papers the lawyer had just sent over to the coffee table, said to Christopher, "Let's get a divorce. You want a divorce?" I said I want a divorce. They looked at each other. Then there was a burst of disbelieving laughter. Emily looked at me skeptically. Tentatively, she asked, "You don't think it's because Dad is having dinner with Aunt Sophia?" Mind upset. "You deliberately said divorce to scare Dad," Jacob went on to say. "Dad's company has been in business for more than 30 years. He's been supporting it all by himself. Now you're asking for a divorce. Don't you want to use half of Dad's hard work to force him? How could I have a mom like you?" I can't help but laugh. Laughing at their ignorance and self-righteousness. Christopher has nothing but a poorly run company and a short temper. Almost nothing. Yet they treat him like the backbone of the family. The reason the divorce papers were ready so quickly, it's because I offered to give up all my property. I pointed to the documents on the table, said in a calm tone, "Don't you guys always say that you are educated? How? Can't even recognize the words on it." Hearing this sentence, Christopher picked up the divorce agreement. Read it over and over again a few times. His face slowly sank. "What kind of trick are you trying to pull this time? You surprisingly don't want a penny." I nodded my head, said, Don't." Jacob grabbed the divorce papers, reads it quickly, eyes widened in surprise. "Company, house, car. You really don't want anything." Emily approached Jacob's ear, whispered, "Your mom is very smart, I think." I look up at her, with a smirk on her face, taking out another document that Jacob and I had severed our mother-son relationship. "You don't have to think, don't worry. Jacob and I will no longer be mother and son when I get old or sick. I won't let you pay for my care." Suddenly, Christopher seemed to remember something, grabbed the vase on the coffee table, slammed it hard on the floor. He reddened his eyes, roared angrily, "Without my permission. Don't go." Shards of glass flew. The child in Emily's arms cries out in terror. Christopher waves his hand impatiently. "Christopher, take the baby back to his room. What happened tonight? You guys just pretend it never happened. I'm divorced. Make him and Sophia whole." I'm surprised he didn't want to. I stood up violently. I stood up and said, word for word, "What do you mean? Let's just forget it. 30 years. You and your father have never given me a second thought. I've lived like an outsider. These things. How can I pretend it didn't happen? I'm telling you, Christopher, I'm getting a divorce." Christopher sat down. Covering his chest, he said, "What will people think of Sophia? What will people think of Sophia? Sophia and I have been rumored all over the city for a long time. Tonight we just had dinner together. You want a divorce. What will Sophia do? How can you be so cruel? You have to ruin her reputation. So it's all because of Sophia. It's all because of Sophia. I originally wanted to get along well, but now it seems impossible." I took out the photos from my cell phone. I said to them, "You've done it yourselves. Are you afraid of what others will say? Christopher, if you don't agree to divorce, I'll send these photos to your company. Let's see how you can still be the president." Christopher didn't expect me to find their photo album so quickly. After a few seconds of panic, immediately said with a straight face, "If you didn't design a pregnancy to force me to get married, how could I separate from Sophia? I just wanted to make up for what I owed her all these years. You too. We're married now. Why are you still so ignorant?" I was about to argue some more. Jacob pulled Christopher, persuade, forget it, if she wants to leave. Let's do it. Without you, she can only live alone from now on. Emily also nodded and said, "Right, go to the notary tomorrow, do the formalities to sever the parent-child relationship. We won't be able to support her in the future. She will definitely regret it." Christopher's face was gloomy. He stood up and walked back to his room, locked the door behind him. Divorce is divorce, seeing the way they look. I was finally relieved. The next day, I smoothly dissolved the mother-child relationship with Jacob. I made an appointment with Christopher to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau for divorce proceedings. I didn't realize he brought Sophia along. The whole process was over quickly. What surprised me even more was, Christopher didn't even go through the divorce cooling-off period. He already made an appointment with Sophia to register the marriage. The next month, I had a very relaxed and easy life. 1 month later, I took the divorce certificate. My heart was full of mixed feelings, too excited to speak. Sophia next to me was wearing a veil, smiling especially happily when passing by her. I couldn't help but sneer. "I can't stand the bitterness. You're so eager to taste it." Seeing this situation, Christopher immediately pushed me away. Jacob and Emily also stood in front of Sophia. They said, "Are you saying it's bad because you can't get it? You were born to suffer. Don't blame my dad." "That's right. I can't even say you're my mother-in-law outside. It's shabby and uncomfortable." Luckily, now Aunt Sophia and my dad are married. She's my ideal mom. I've just finished speaking. My lawyer came over with a stack of papers. Madeline, about that huge inheritance from Mr. Thompson. You can sign the inheritance today. I looked at the people who were still in a daze, didn't say much, took the documents directly from the lawyer, probably glanced at it, then took a step and left. Good, let's go sign it now. Jacob came back to his senses. He grabbed me. What, $1 billion will? Don't be ridiculous. He pointed at me, voice shrill with excitement. You're trying to piss off Dad and Aunt Sophia? I can't believe you would even do such a thing. He turned violently to the lawyer. There was sarcasm in his tone. How many favors did she give you to put on a show? And talk about $1 billion will. If she left $1 billion legacy, how could I not know? I am her own son. The lawyer looked at the emotional Jacob, seemed to understand why I decided not to leave him the will. Sophia looked at me with contempt. She said in a soft tone, Madeline, I know you're sad about your divorce from Christopher, but you didn't have to find someone to put on an act. We've both been through a lot of years. We should learn to let go of the past, cherish the present, she said, looking up tenderly at Christopher. But I have to thank you too. If you hadn't quit, I might not have been able to find my happiness in the second half of my life. Christopher holds Sophia's hand tightly, looks at me with disdainful eyes, said, Have you forgotten? I met your parents. The moment we got married, you guys even hesitated to pay a dowry of $100,000. Now you have the nerve to pretend to be billionaires. He sneered, said, Don't mind her. She's just a show-off. Even if you find more people to act, it won't turn out to be of any real value. I want to laugh a little. It's true that my dad was an ordinary businessman in the beginning, but it's not that he couldn't get $100,000. It's just that he wasn't happy that Christopher got me pregnant out of wedlock, so he didn't agree to me marrying him. Then my dad went abroad to start his own business. He soon made his first bucket of money. Then the foreign company went public. The family fortune is getting richer and richer. My dad actually came to me. He wanted me to go abroad to live with him. But at that time, I was only thinking about Christopher and Jacob, so I refused. Looking back now, I was a bit of a fool. The lawyer coughed gently, reached out in front of me, said, Mr. Thompson's will does have hundreds of millions of assets. He only had one daughter in his life, Mtks Madeline, and it clearly states to leave the estate to his only daughter. That is, Mtks Madeline. Emily saw this situation. Her face turned pale all of a sudden, stammering, "Sh, what, you don't take us for fools? We won't believe a word you say." Jacob was about to speak. I cut him off right away. "We'll see tonight." That's all. I took my lawyer and left without looking back. Christopher as a businessman, the news of the businesswoman's daughter inheriting a huge inheritance. I'm sure it will soon reach him. In the car, I stared at the divorce certificate in my hand. My heart was full of mixed feelings. At this time, the lawyer whispered to me, "Madeline, happy birthday." "Yes, it is. Today is my birthday. My dad gave me a gift that will feed me for the rest of my life. I've also given myself the gift of life." Just thinking about Christopher and his dad's reaction, I felt especially relieved in my heart. It didn't take long. The lawyer led me to the notary's office. Signed the will of succession. My dad's name of the group building, stores, jewelry, and other family property worth billions of dollars. At the moment I signed, all of it was transferred to my name. Sure enough, that night, the whole business and entertainment news were rushing to report. It said that the daughter of a mysterious foreign tycoon inherited billions of dollars today. A few days after the report was released, Jacob and Emily blocked me at the hotel. "Mom, today is the day I officially take over my father's foreign group." I wore a couture velvet dress. I wore exquisite makeup, followed by a group of bodyguards. I was about to leave for the airport. Emily saw me. She froze for a moment. She didn't seem to recognize me, but soon she reacted, cried out, "Mom, there's no such thing as a family feud." Jacob and I really realized we were wrong. We were confused before. "We shouldn't have upset you like that." Jacob kept slapping himself. Crying, he said to me, "Mom, I really know I was wrong. We're going to take the kids and go abroad with you. Take good care of you. What Grandpa left you abroad. How can you handle it alone? I can help you share it." He asked me to go abroad with him. Said he wanted me to help him share. In fact, he just wants me to keep spending money for him willingly. I took a deep breath, trying to control the anger inside, walked straight past them, coldly said to the bodyguard, "I don't have a son. Don't let them appear in front of me again." The bodyguard heard this, immediately stepped forward, unceremoniously pushed Jacob out. Jacob fell to the ground with a shocked face, voice trembling, shouted, "Mom, What are you talking about? I'm your own son. How can you pretend you don't recognize me and our child? He's your own grandson. Didn't you used to love him very much? I stopped walking, slowly turned around, coldly looking at him. I used to have a son, but we've severed the mother-son relationship. Right. Jacob opened his mouth, understanding that he couldn't refute it, but he still kneeled down unwillingly, called out, "Mom, I know I was wrong. Don't you leave me so desperately," he said at the same time. While taking out the document of severing parent-child relationship from his bosom, he tore it into pieces. How can a seal cut off our blood relationship of more than 30 years? This is absolutely impossible. Emily hurriedly knelt down. Tears kept flowing. "Mom, please forgive us. Without you, we really can't go on without you." There were more and more people watching. Everyone is whispering, "How can this mom be so heartless? Her own son is on his knees. She still refuses to forgive." Isn't this the woman who inherited a huge amount of money that everyone has been discussing? With money, she disowns her relatives. She lets so much money go unspent. She doesn't even care about her relatives. I really don't know what she thinks. She'll definitely regret it later. I smiled coldly, took out my cell phone, played the video recorded at home that night. In the video was when I filed for divorce. When I filed for divorce, Christopher and Jacob mocked me for being inferior to Sophia. I stared at Jacob, said word for word, "Who said you'd make me regret the divorce? And now you're playing the pity party. If you want Sophia to be your mom so badly, why did you come to me? Why did you come to me?" As soon as the video was released, the crowd that originally supported them immediately quieted down, turning to look at them with contempt, to actually want a third party to replace their own mother. This son is so unlikable. I wouldn't recognize him if it were me. I watched Jacob and Emily's faces change, no longer say anything more. I turned around and left after stepping off the airplane. Countless flashbulbs were flashing at me. I used the English I practiced for a long time. I answered the reporter's questions calmly, although I have been a housewife for more than 30 years. I really don't know much about business. Luckily, my father thought of me well before he died. He sponsored many foreign students in advance and instructed them to help me well. Then I was busy as hell. I felt like life was full of vigor again. I originally thought things would get better. I didn't expect an account called Billionaire Heir's Daughter-in-Law to suddenly catch fire. The owner of this account is no one else. It is Emily. She smiled especially happily in front of the camera, said, "That mysterious daughter of a billionaire is actually my mother-in-law. Want to know how the daughter-in-law of a billionaire family usually lives? Come and follow me. I will take you to find out." I clicked into Emily's account. I found that she has more than 1 million followers. In her videos, she's either showing off her luxurious life or answering commercials. Every single dynamic mentions Madeline, the heir to $1 billion inheritance. In the comments section, people have expressed envy. Someone asked, "God, is it particularly easy to be a daughter-in-law of a luxurious family? Do you want to know what the daily life of a young grandmother of a luxurious family is like? You're really good at choosing a husband. How come this sudden good luck couldn't fall on me?" What makes me even more angry is the mother-in-law who appeared with her in the video. It's not me, but Sophia. Netizens are buzzing, saying that this billion-dollar heiress is both down-to-earth and low-key. I immediately registered a real-name personal account. Leave a message directly under her latest video. "How come I didn't know I had a daughter-in-law like you?" Not more than a few minutes later, my account was a mess. Emily's fans rushed over like crazy, spraying me all over the place. That's okay. You have to rub it in too. Someone's mother-in-law showed pictures of her billionaire father when he was young in the video. Can this still be fake? Are you trying too hard to be famous? This is a photo of my dad when he was young. I've already packed everything. Did Christopher hide it secretly? No matter what, if someone dares to impersonate me, I definitely won't let it go easily. I immediately sent my ID and the video from the day I signed the inheritance letter. Now, Emily panicked, started to argue strongly. Is she the only billionaire in the country? But her topic clearly mentioned my name. Netizens are not all blind followers. When they see it, they start to question it. Since your mother-in-law is not Madeline, why did you bring this topic? Isn't that making us think you're the rich daughter-in-law who inherited billions of dollars a few days ago? Right. If I wasn't curious about what the heir to $1 billion inheritance looks like, I wouldn't be following you. Aren't you just cheating? I updated a message right away. If Sophia is also a billionaire, I'd have no problem with that, but she publicized my dad's photo. I'll hold her legally responsible. Emily sheepishly deleted the few videos she had posted earlier, sort of slapped herself in the face. It's just that I didn't expect it. This time I came out to prove myself. Instead, Jacob found me. He kept sending private messages to my account with an aggrieved tone. Mom, you're rich. You can't cut us off. Emily has been doing well as a blogger. Why did you suddenly intervene? A lot of advertisers are hesitating now. You know what? If we lose all the ads, our whole family will have to drink the northwest wind. I laughed in my heart. I asked him, don't you still have a president father who makes you proud? There is also a gentle and virtuous stepmother. The cell phone side was quiet for a while, finally did not reply. I don't have the heart to say more to him. Simply pull him back to the company. My assistant came over with a stack of documents. Madeline, this is what you asked me to find. Documents about Mr. Thompson's investment projects. I took a deep breath. I began to scrutinize the documents page by page. The results were exactly what I expected. Christopher's projects, in fact. They were all invested by my dad in the name of the company. No wonder his company barely lasted 30 years. I wonder how he would react if he knew the truth. How would he react? I handed the file back to my assistant, calmly said, starting today, all divestment. The assistant froze for a moment, immediately nodded and said, Madeline, later. My account had more and more followers, but I didn't want to share my private life, so I posted all the paintings I used to draw. I didn't realize that those paintings that Christopher had disparaged. Surprisingly, a lot of people rushed to buy them, this feeling of being recognized. I've lived for more than 30 years. It's the first time I've experienced it. A month later, the assistant came to my office again. She said in a relaxed tone, Madeline, according to your instructions, the divestment has been completed, but there are a few items. You need to go over there and deal with them personally. I replied dryly, okay, then go. I'm curious too, without me. What will become of Christopher back in the familiar city? I didn't go to Christopher's company right away. Instead, I went to the house where I used to live, because I couldn't let my dad's photo remain there, being used freely. I knocked on the door politely. As soon as Jacob saw me, eyes immediately became agitated, shouting with a sobbing voice, Mom, I knew it. You won't leave me and Dad behind. It's good that you're back. My dad couldn't hold on much longer. I pushed him away. I went straight to Christopher's bedroom. As soon as I entered the door, the yellow rose color scheme all over the room stung my eyes. It looked especially tacky. I pulled open the drawer. Sure enough, I found a picture of my dad. I hurriedly stuffed it back into my bag, turned around and left. Coldly said, Your dad is not working. What's it got to do with me? Jacob froze in place. He didn't move a muscle when I left the house. He choked back a sob. Mom, your grandson is starving to death. You don't care. I thought it was ridiculous. I've pampered him like a baby since he was a child. I pampered him for decades. But it turned out to be a white-eyed wolf. Now he has his own child. Still wants me to raise it. After leaving, I went straight to Christopher's company. There was a group of people standing outside the door, shouting angrily, Christopher, when will my salary be paid? It's been 2 months. That's it. The promised subsidies are all gone. If the company is dead, tell us earlier. Don't delay us. Some formally dressed partners can't help but complain. You promised to complete the project this month. Now there's no progress at all. You know I can sue you. For this project alone, you'll have to pay me $100,000 for breach of contract. Where's your boss? Tell him to come out. It's only been a few months since the divorce. The company he talked about has become like this. What a pain in the ass. A few colleagues in the company recognized me. They whispered, Isn't this Christopher's ex-wife? I feel a bit familiar. He seems to be the heir to that billion-dollar inheritance. Christopher was originally in the office. When he heard someone talking about me, he ran out immediately as soon as he saw me. He gave orders as usual. Madeline, you are just in time. Give me $1 million to save the day. I turned my head and looked at Sophia behind him. Asked, give you $1 million. Are you dreaming? He froze for a moment, seems to have just remembered that we are divorced. The status is completely different nowadays. But he has always been used to being strong. Said with a stern face, How can you be the child's mother? How are you going to be a grandmother to your children? Thompson's family is in trouble. How can you not care? Sophia is willing to sell her flower store to help me, and you're giving me a hard time. I can't help but laugh. Christopher, Sophia is your wife, but I'm not. I paused, laughed harder. You're right about one thing. I did come here to throw stones. I handed over the divestment papers. Christopher, you and my dad signed a betting agreement. My dad didn't pursue you because I'm his son. He didn't pursue you. But I'm different. Today, I'm not only withdrawing my investment. I want you to honor your betting promise. Either you compensate me for the loss of $10 million, or give me all the shares of the company. He took the information in my hand, shake his head vigorously. Mr. Thompson, it's your father. Sophia is pale. She has lost her usual delicacy. She looked haggard. She looked at me in a low voice. She pleaded, Madeline, you and Christopher have been together for over 30 years after all. Can you not? I interrupted her directly. I can even give up my own son, Jacob, let alone him, I said. The lawyer who came with me walked up, said to Christopher, the betting agreement is legally binding. Please fulfill it as soon as possible. I swept a glance at the messy office. Smiling, I said to Christopher, looks like you can't afford that huge compensation. Why don't you just offset the company to me? Christopher looked out the door at the co-workers who were demanding their wages and the partners who had come for accountability. His throat moved. He finally signed his name on the equity transfer form. I can see that he is very reluctant to give up, especially for the identity of the president. I looked at his name with satisfaction. He raised his head, eyes red, asked me, why did you do it so badly? I said calmly, I'm just taking back my dowry. You know that. He then realized. I had seen through his marriage scam. That night, I quickly auctioned off the company at a low price, although the auction proceeds were definitely not as much as $10 million. But I could personally bring Christopher back to the starting point. I felt it was worth it. After that, Christopher's family situation was even worse. In order to make ends meet, Emily had to open the live broadcast again, try to sell goods, but the netizens are not supportive, not only buy and return, also criticized in her live broadcast, resulting in her being forced off the air. After a while, when I was dealing with domestic real estate affairs, I happened to see Sophia and Emily arguing in the administration hall. Emily snatched the red book from Sophia's hand, angrily questioned, why did you hide it from me and Jacob? Sold our home. Sophia is not willing to show her weakness. She straightened her neck and retorted, this house was Christopher's wedding gift to me. My name was on it long ago. My flower store is sold. His company is gone too. This is the last compensation he gave me. I can sell if I want to. I haven't mentioned anything about you and Jacob. You're over 30. You still ask for money every day. Don't you feel embarrassed? The words just fell. Christopher came out from behind her, lifted his hand and slapped her heavily, said in a stern voice, Sophia, you think the Thompsons have embarrassed you, do you, since you married me? We are one. Why should we be divided? I'll let you sell the flower store to help the company. This is your chance. Sophia covered her face, crying to him, you are unbelievable. I'm going to divorce you. They just got married not long ago. How come they can't stick it out? Jacob is late, seeing the situation in front of him. Not only did he not persuade the fight, he had the cheek to look at Christopher and say, Dad, I just played a little last night. I wanted to win some money to help your company, but I didn't expect such bad luck. Emily's eyes widened. Can't believe it. Our house and car were all lost by you. Why don't you lose yourself too? Jacob impatiently pushed her to the ground. Holding out 5 fingers, he said, not much, just $50,000. You, Christopher's raised hand stopped in the air. Then he covered his chest and fell down. I walked over to him expressionlessly, looked down at him, speaking softly, asked for it. After that, I didn't care about the noisy sounds of the family behind me. Directly got into the Rolls Royce, said to the driver, go to the airport. Today, my painting exhibition abroad is about to open. My life started at the age of 60. Every day after that is full of excitement.